Welcome to this session on FLAL, which is the future of life and longevity. We have with us Ashish Chauhan, MD and CEO of the National Stock Exchange, NSE. Ashish, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure talking to you.
Ashish, as our theme is around longevity, and there's an entire segment of people in India and globally which are now focused on living a longer life and a healthier one. And at the same time, there is a larger group of people which are still fighting for survival. So life, right? Whether it's because of monetary issues or sanitation or careers. So as a man associated with stock markets for many decades and having seen investment cycles, investment horizons, what are some of your initial thoughts on how people should be thinking about a longer lifespan?
In a way, if you recall, when India became independent in 1947, world was going through a lot of tumult just before that in World War I, World War II, and the world has seen a huge amount of sort of tumult for literally all the millenniums the mankind existed, except last probably 60, 70 years where it has been a reasonable quiet. And the life expectancy then was around 38, 39 for India in 1947. Today, it's almost double, around 72, 74. And so India was probably around 300 million people, the 30 crore people, or in that range, or probably 39 crores. So in that range, somewhere around 300 and 400 million people. Today, it's almost 1.4 billion people, 1.45 billion people. So literally, it has gone up 3.5, 4 times. And largely, it's due to the improvement in health and other things, but it has increased the life expectancy of people because it has doubled the life. So in a way, you see many more number of people today living much longer life than in India's history ever. And that would be true for many parts of the world, or rather most parts of the world. And again, there has been reasons, especially of the medical capabilities that have increased post-World War II, especially the antibiotics and now, of course, genetic modification and other things. But there has been a sea change in the way the world is able to see longevity, because longevity used to be a kind of a thinking that we used to be, of course, towards survivor bias. That is, people who lived longer, we thought everyone used to live longer, but that was not true. Today, most people live longer than their predecessors, and that's a fact, right? And societies have not prepared for this kind of longevity situation because you need to take care of the old people in their old age and across the world. India has been not great on social security as yet, but if you look at Europe, specifically Western Europe, Canada, US, a large part of their GDP now goes in just the healthcare. And as a very significant part of their healthcare budget, I've been told almost 20% or close to that of the entire GDP of all this block together, Western bloc as we call it, goes for just the healthcare. And some very significant portion of that goes in making people live longer from say age 74 to say 76 or 76 to 78. So last few years of their lives are becoming very costly for their societies because they have provided social security, and which is also free. Healthcare is free for elderly people, and that has created a situation where increasingly large amount of money is being spent, while as India has not yet spent it just purely on the merit of the new medical techniques and availability of the medicines in India that has actually brought up this miracle of life, as I call it, because nobody would have thought in 1940 or 1947, when we became independent, that Indians will be living so long. And given what is happening with the genetic modification and specialized medicines which each individual would have, probably people will live even longer. And that would, of course, create a situation for the governments to allow them to work longer, also not have injuries in their old age, because that's one of the larger causes of misery in older age, and also having a deterioration in their quality of life towards the end of life period. Of course, India has now started Ayushman Bharat framework, which is more like health insurance up to almost $6,000 per annum per person, which is a significant amount in India, given the healthcare costs being amongst the lowest, among the best healthcare activities that happen in the world are actually happening in India. So in some ways, India slowly started building up its social security framework, but no society can provide infinite care to its citizens. And that's why people will have to continue to save for their old age. Also, they will probably work longer, because the retirement earnings we all keep for the sort of older age may not be sufficient. And the other side, the technological changes that are happening across the world are ensuring that the money that people need to put in may not get that great interest, that is returns for the investors. And so you will require probably a larger amount of money when you retire compared to say people who are currently old. And so we'll have to plan, each of us as individuals, but the society as a whole, for ensuring that this kind of planning happens. And that's why the quality of life for the citizens, especially in their old age, improves significantly.
There's some great points there, Ashish. I mean, if you look at countries like Japan, where they have a large aging population and very low interest rates, almost negative as well, and you compare India, so India is also now having a fairly decent percentage of the population which will be in a very old age category, and we, like you said, we are not equipped to manage that, not at an individual level, not at a family level, and definitely not at a national level. What does that mean then for long-term funds, for pension funds, for mutual funds, and for people who are investing in them and the stock markets? How should people be thinking about investment horizons? So currently, when we say long term, we are obviously not thinking about 40 years or 50 years when you say long-term investment, right? You're probably thinking about 5 or 10 or 15 years. So even if you're investing in a real estate investment trust, the horizon is not going into many, many decades. So do you see that as we have a larger aging population, not just in India, globally, and at the same time, you have people who are more focused on longevity, how will these two forces compel both markets, and people who are creating products, financial products, to cater to this phenomenon?
There are many sort of paradigms that are shifting currently. As you rightly said, people are going to live longer, so they'll have to have longer horizons. But the volatility in each market, whether it is bond or equities or other asset classes, the volatility is very, very high. And that's where basically people's horizons are becoming much shorter in terms of any investment they are putting their money in. And that's why planning for future, planning for longer term, and actually acting on it by investing it through a professional manager is actually gaining ground even in countries like India, through insurance or through the portfolio managers or through the mutual fund managers. There is a huge movement that is taking place in all developing countries. But of course, India is a unique country in a way that it has a a very well-functioning equities market, which not many poor countries have per capita income. And that's where India is more in the middle income or even richer countries level in terms of the development of in markets. And that's why many people are able to invest through the markets using various instruments, whether they are into bonds or equities or hybrids or any other way. And what I have seen is that the societies which are younger are able to have better growth rates and better returns for the investments you make. And that is why we see that many of the countries which have become old already, like Japan or even Europe, which has become significantly old, and even probably Canada, they don't see great returns in their own economies. So they are searching for well-functioning capital markets in other countries which are young, which are able to give you better growth. And that's where, for me, India scores very well vis-a-vis the rest of the world, that India is going to remain young for next 40, 50 years. Today, average age is around 28, 29 in India, and it's 17% of world population. It's a well-functioning democracy, well-functioning markets too.
Absolutely.
And that's where not only Indians are investing in India, but some of the more interesting ways of investing is also, Indians are not used to investing that way, but foreigners like Brookfields, they are taking over assets which are long-term assets, which are actually earning a lot of returns, and they're investing directly into those assets. And so we see that kind of activity also, because what happens is when a country takes a debt from outsiders, it has to repay that. And the country's sovereign rating also depends on how much it will be able to repay, and that depends on its future productivity. The countries which have become old, like Japan or China, even China has become suddenly old because of one-child policy. Europe is old. My understanding is that their ability to repay back to the lenders is going to be slowly going down, although the rating agencies may be from those countries and they may be biased towards giving those people better ratings. But that doesn't improve their quality of or their ability to repay later better. It's just kind of a more a biased situation. But effectively, the countries which are young, which are well functioning as societies, which are able to produce more and also consume more, because young societies also consume more. And so that's why the older societies don't produce much in terms of the incremental outputs, but they also don't use the newer technologies so well. And they also don't consume well, because the newer things are difficult for the old people to learn. And my hypothesis is that going forward, a lot of wealth is going to be created. A lot of wealth is going to be created in the things which are relating to healthcare itself. So in a way, the wealth will start moving from societies which are old, which will get support from the younger societies to take care of the older societies' sort of needs for help by younger people. And that would happen within the same country also. So in India also, older people with money, slowly the wealth will transfer to the younger people who are helping them, in addition to, of course, their heirs. But even there is a possibility that younger people might migrate to other countries and also may help those countries' older people, take care of them, and that money may move back to countries which are younger. And so there are many such things that are going to happen. Not many people have gone through all these scenarios of slow downgrading of the ability to repay, although their credit rating may remain same, because the credit rating agencies may not be able to somehow bring down their own country's credit rating down below a particular point. But eventually, people who are actually saving in even those countries will want to invest in countries which have better chance of giving you returns back and so on and so forth. And that's where I think India scores very well over next 40, 50.
Absolutely. I think you've given some amazing paradigms and sort of angles to think about longevity and how it'll affect the longevity economy. I think there are several shades to the longevity economy and how one can start thinking about it. You know, you briefly touched upon Ayushman Bharat in India and, you know, how that is helping people and a great parallel between, you know, the social security they have in the West vis-a-vis, let's say, Ayushman Bharat on the healthcare side. Um, you know, clearly in a country like India and in a vibrant democracy that we are, the role of the state in terms of life and longevity is perhaps a little more pronounced, right? And I'm sure we've seen in the last 8 to 10 years some significant efforts and great achievements by the state in India. Um, what are your thoughts on, you know, the work that's already been done, and how do you see the next, let's say, 4, 5, or 10 years, you know, going through?
No, anyway, the next probably 5 to 10 years will be a much shorter period to make any significant dent. But what has happened is, I think the government, especially of Mr. Modi, has realized acutely that any family would have significant issues of sustaining itself if there is any difficult illness that visits them for any of their member of the family. Even one person getting affected can affect the entire family's equilibrium in terms of education, healthcare of other people, nutrition, even mental peace, hunger, and everything else. So that's why they have focused on providing the Ayushman Bharat so that people, while taking care of their loved ones, don't go bankrupt. And in India, that 6,000 US dollars, that is a annual limit, goes a long way in healthcare, especially in hospital. And that's where I think this is a good beginning. Of course, it requires sort of doing some work at the edges in terms of ensuring that it reaches to the right places. But effectively, I think I've heard some great stories on Ayushman Bharat. I also heard that it still requires a lot of upgrading and also coordination of agencies and all is required. But broadly, it's a great sign. Second part, its scores in India is basically ease of getting the medicines at a very low cost, including Jan Aushadhi Kendras, which is basically the medical centers where you can buy medicines even at half the price or 1/3 the price of a normal open market prices, which itself are literally a very small fraction of what you would get in Europe or US. And so India's medical costs of medicines, even of the visits, are really extreme low cost. People are able to identify and they don't have to stand in use if they have some amount of money. But now that government coming up with Ayushman Bharat, I'm sure we'll be able to do even better. But that's where India scored quite good sort of quite a good progress over last 5-6 years. And going forward with genetic modification, even genetic testing, and some of the new medicines being available at a mass scale, India can actually increase the expected sort of life expectancy from 74, 76 years to probably even higher compared to, say, almost reaching the Western country levels or Japan levels. And I have no doubt that India would be at the forefront of all the research that is taking place in this area on ensuring that you live not only longer life, but also more productive life, because you end up becoming dependent on others when you become old. Whereas if we can do using modern methodologies, an ability for you to work longer, not be dependent on others longer, then that is a actually significant addition to the country's economy in terms of the economic performance every individual can provide to the society forward, right? So it's early days. India is pretty much almost in top 2 or 3 countries in the world in terms of the medical research that is taking place. You have seen during COVID times also that India developed 2 vaccines, and not only that, it gave 2 different vaccines if people required whatever type of vaccines across the country, in a continent-sized country, 17% of the world population. But also it provided to the rest of the world 2 vaccines at extreme low cost and during COVID times. And for me, this was India's what I call telling the world that we have arrived. Earlier, we used to only give you generic medicines. Now we are able to give you bespoke medicines also, which are very low cost. I recall the cost of delivery of producing and delivering of a vaccine was probably 2 or 3% of what it costed US, or even less than in India. So that's where India scores in terms of the frugality, in terms of innovations, in terms of research, and it will go a long way in keeping Indians healthy longer, making them live longer but healthier life.
Absolutely right, Ashish. And I think looking at India's past track record and the trajectory, I think we have, everything going for us, and it is our moment now, so to say. As we bring this interview to an end, just want a one-liner from you on the future of life and longevity from where we are.
Life will continue to evolve in all the directions which we cannot think of today. But it is for sure that humans are going to live longer than what they have done in the past. And it is the duty of every society to plan, make people aware of what can go wrong in this journey, and allow its citizens to plan for their own longer life, but also healthier and happier life for very long. And that's what I would say each society has to also create building blocks to support the older people, because sometimes we forget about creating those building blocks. And many societies which are richer in terms of resources are having loneliness problem in older age groups. And those are the things we need to work on as India, but also as the world.
Thank you so much, Ashish. This was a fantastic discussion with you. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.